Test, test, test. Micro, micro. Test, test. Test, micro, micro. Test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Test, micro. Lundi 26 novembre, 18h30. Test, micro. Test, 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 micro. 1, 2, 1, 2. Test, test, micro. 1, 2, 1, 2. Top, top, top. Test, micro.
Un, 2, 3, test micro. Test micro, test, test, test micro. Test micro 18h42. Test micro 18h42. test micro, 18h55.
vrai, oui, mais bon, au cas où.
Exactly, it's a little surprise.
Test. 1, 2. Je suis juste en test du micro. Test. Ah oui. Hi, everybody. Hi, good night. Could you please join me in on the front of the stage? Everybody's here now. Gonna make it more a bit cozier. Just join me here. Don't be afraid. Come here. So this is the 9th Crypto Monday. We are very happy to have you with us tonight at PwC. We would like to thank PwC for welcoming us and welcoming you guys and providing the food and drinks for tonight. We have some great speakers for you tonight, but before that, I would like to remind everybody that some of you know, we are organizing the Paris Blockchain Week in next April, and the main event B10. We have some A-list speakers already confirmed from IOTA, blockchain.info, Eva Kaili from the European Parliament, the CFOs of Binance and Ripple, all the usual suspects, Tezos, Arc, Ledger, and some more interesting guys that are not used to come to Paris, and we are in discussion with those guys like Charlie Lee, Nick Szabo, Brock Pierce, and many more. On top of that, this is the main event, B10, and on top of that, there will be in Paris a huge concentration of events organized by the most prominent blockchain organizations in the world. Hopefully, some of the speakers who are here tonight with us, and also Tezos, Ledger, Cosmos, Tendermint, and a lot of just very interesting guys. So I would like to, last time we did something that kind of worked. We gave you a small gift. We would like to offer the Crypto Mondays community a 20% discount on top of the current discount on the tickets for the conference. You can just go to b10paris.com and use the promo code Crypto Mondays, and that gives you 20% additional discount for only 20 tickets. So be sure to do it quick. We have some great speakers for you tonight. Zan Ditkov first, signature fund partner at Blockstack. He's coming all the way from New York, right? And we have Joanne Aid, the technical lead at OneChain, coming all the way from the 15th, right? They'll be with us for the evening, so be sure to catch them before they leave. Thank you very much for coming every month and to follow us and support us. It means a lot to us. Before we get on with Zan and his presentation, I would like to pass the mic to Pauline from PwC. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. So that's the commercial minute just to talk about PwC. First of all, we're really, really happy to have you here at PwC France for the Crypto Mondays. Just a few words on PwC and blockchain. Blockchain is really a key topic we are investing a lot on. So within PwC France, we have a blockchain lab. You do know some of the people, Sébastien, Vivien, Rémi, Hector, and I know you some of you already work with them. So that's the expert center of expertise. And then we have champions, blockchain champions within the different businesses. And when I say businesses, it's the traditional businesses. So, you know, we are an audit company. We audit the Tezos Foundation. So we do have blockchain experts within our audit streams. We have experts from TLS, so tax and legal services. We have experts within our cybersecurity hub, doing all the cybersecurity on smart contracts. We have experts in the different consulting and strategic advisory practices, and we have lots of traction within the energy, financial services, aerospace and defense industry. And finally, we also have experts within our experience centers. Within our experience center, we have UX and you have people that are working on apps. So the main topics we're working on, ICO. I know it's maybe not very fashion today to say we are working on ICOs, but we are working on ICOs, either for pure players or for big companies, corporate companies from the CAC 40 who are here today. We are also working on assets tokenization. We are working on audits, either auditing the blockchain supply chain or either auditing financial accounts for companies that have crypto funds. We're working also on how to work on use cases within the blockchain, so what we call blockchainization. And finally, on all the crypto asset environment setting up. So we're talking about exchanges or things like that. We're really, really happy to have you today. Happy to catch up also after the very, very impressive conference that we're going to have today. And we can start with Xan. Happy to have you here today.
Thank you. And thank you, PwC and Crypto Mondays, for having me. It's a treat that I get to do this, especially in Paris. Before I begin, just out of curiosity, how many of you had heard about Blockstack before coming here tonight? Just show of hands. Oh, that's actually pretty good. Well, happy I can increase that number a little bit tonight. As Kareem mentioned, my name is Zan. I have been on the core team of Blockstack for about 1.5 years now. And during that time, my focus has really been on the layer being built on top of Blockstack, the decentralized application ecosystem. We'll touch on that in a second, but before we do, what is Blockstack? At a high level, it is, can you hear me? Cool. At a high level, Blockstack is both a decentralized network and a developer toolkit to easily build scalable, decentralized applications. Put another way, we kind of see our mission as enabling fundamental digital rights for any internet user. Now, what this looks like from an end user perspective is anyone can register an identity or a name programmatically at the protocol level. And with that name and identity, they get an encrypted cloud storage bucket and a wallet. You can really think of these as digital property and a user getting property rights. They enable both decentralized authentication and decentralized storage. Now, how do we do this? Well, Blockstack takes a different view or a philosophy towards the use of a blockchain than I think a lot of other projects in this space. We see a blockchain as a very powerful innovation, but at a fundamental level, a blockchain is really an inefficient and extremely inefficient structure for a database. What you get for that inefficiency, however, as I think most of us know, is the ability to establish digital trust without any intermediaries, really for the first time in human history, and that's pretty powerful. But when you realize that trade-off, it informs how you build your system. And so with Blockstack, we really use the blockchain layer purely to establish and maintain that digital trust and state of the network. All other code, for the most part, is pushed to the edges off-chain. What this means is that applications built on top of Blockstack can not only can, but do leverage commodity web infrastructure for their business logic. This makes them scalable currently today at comparable levels to the traditional internet services that we're all used to using. And that's pretty powerful, especially because for developers, they can use frameworks and languages they're already familiar with. And they don't have to necessarily deal with the constraints that come with running everything or a lot of that business logic on chain. Now, in terms of the actual application development we've seen so far, I do want to emphasize that in my opinion, it's still very early days here, not just for Blockstack, but for the space in general. That being said, the past year has been a pretty compelling one for me, as we've started to see the first instances of application development on top of Blockstack. And these are really the first projects that are experimenting with what's possible when user data or data itself is decoupled from the application. And I think that's a really important point because I don't think decentralized applications, dApps, are going to see wide adoption or are going to be compelling to your average end user, folks like my parents, if they're simply copies of currently offered centralized services and applications. What they have to do in order to really see that adoption is they need to provide value that is unique specifically because of that decoupled data. And so the kind of last thing I'll briefly mention before getting into a little bit of back and forth with Kareem and definitely very interested in answering all of your questions as well, is a program we recently launched that we're very excited about called App Mining, is exactly meant to help developers who are experimenting in there and kind of fuel that development. At a high level, App Mining every month ranks and distributes funds to applications that are built on top of Blockstack. The overall purpose of App Mining is really to reward and fuel those early developers that are using their resources, talents, and time to really be the first to experiment and build there, and also to pull in more developers and users into the ecosystem. We recently announced the launch of the pilot, which will start actually in just a couple days. December will be the first month. Starting in December, eligible applications that are built using Blockstack will receive an aggregate of $100,000 each month paid out in Bitcoin. And so definitely interested in talking to some of you afterwards. But if any of you have decentralized applications, have friends or colleagues that are interested in building them or have them, that maybe Blockstack could be valuable in supporting, definitely check the program out. You can see more at app.co/mining. And with that, Kareem, let's get a little grilling going.
Thank you very much, Zan. So, yeah, that last point you mentioned was about incentivizing developers to go on the platform. And that's actually one of the most important problems, I would say, in this ecosystem. So aside from the monetary aspect of this, how does Blockstack incentivize developers to join the platforms? What's different at Blockstack than from other platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes down at first to the ease of development. You don't have to learn Solidity. You don't have to worry about when you put an application into the wild, users are using it, there's economic value that they could lose, and then that's your fault. They look at you. Because of the way we're constructed, applications can simply be user-facing JavaScript running locally on the machines. And because of that, I think the familiarity is really important. And then moving on, I think business models as well. Blockstack works well to support traditional business models that we see on the web today, things like subscriptions. At the same time, I think we're really going to start seeing in the years to come a rise of brand new business models that are much more around open network incentivization structures, things like app mining. You can look at app mining as just a revenue stream for applications on top of Blockstack, or you can look at it as a way to kind of create a flywheel of application development where, an application that receives funds can then take that and actually do the same thing we're doing, but within their own application ecosystem, use it to have their community work on and improve the app. And at the end of the day, I think we've created a pretty efficient structure for actually rewarding those who are creating the value and letting them continue to generate that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd like to dive in a bit into the change in terms of business models. So you, as an investor, how would you apprehend those new structures? We even not talking about business models and sometimes talking about value distribution models where you need to have an ecosystem that's kind of circling and that creates a virtuous circle, right? And so how would you apprehend that? Do you kind of have some metrics, some in-house metrics, some in-house analytics grades?
I don't know if it's as much in-house metrics or analytics yet. It's again, I think we're still somewhat in the experimentation phase in terms of which of those business models will really rise and take over. And it may be ones that really haven't been tested yet. But I think at least, with the US venture funding market, and this is a big goal of app mining, is traditional venture capital, at least in the States, hasn't really gotten its hands around how to invest in the application layer, very invested in the infrastructure layer. And so we look at app mining as a way to kind of prove out some of these, and as a way that it can almost be a new form of venture where if you see enough success with app mining down the road, you actually may not need to raise venture funding potentially because of the way that that can help you bootstrap an ecosystem. At the end of the day, I think there are three pieces that we need right now to see wider spread application adoption. One of those is educational for both developers and users in terms of why this is valuable. And I think we're increasingly seeing that, especially around things with data privacy, GDPR being a perfect example. I think as that creates more problems for businesses, especially international businesses, a lot of the work being done in this space is going to become very viable solutions there. And kind of the two other pieces is funding as well as a user base. And so the kind of superpower potentially that projects in this space have is to pull in users, to pull in developers. They don't just have to rely on traditional growth marketing, growth hacking. Rather, it is very much more about what is your incentive structure and have you properly set that up for the end goal? Because if you have, in Blockstack's case, it is the creation of very high quality applications that users love. Well, that's not just going to incentivize existing developers on your platform. It's going to bring in new developers. And also, depending on how you implement those systems, you can actually have it bring in end users as well.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned that we don't need like copycats of traditional applications on the blockchain. And so could you maybe elaborate on that in what would be the main trends in 2019? Maybe there's an interesting story right now at Blockstack of an interesting product that's really new and innovative. And just before you answer, sorry, if you guys have any questions, just raise your hand while Zen is answering, and I'll come get you. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of trends, I don't know that I can make too accurate of predictions, but I don't necessarily think it's not that we don't need decentralized copies of centralized services. I would say it's a little more that I don't think that's where we're going to see the big breakthroughs, and I don't necessarily think that's where that's going to necessarily catalyze the most adoption. I think enabling the way that users are going to be ultimately pulled into the system is by creating and having applications that can do things that are not possible in the current world with centralized data silos. One potential example of this is we're already kind of getting into a world where users expect applications to meet them on the platforms they already are. Google authentication, Facebook authentication are the two biggest, but GitHub, Twitter, there's multiple. So that expectation is already happening. The thing is that does nothing to solve the problems of centralized data. Rather, it can actually make them worse. And so I think you can enable a world where not only do users authenticate into an application for the first time like they do today with Google or Facebook, and it makes it much easier to do so, but they can do it and all their data is already there in a way where it looks like they've been using that application for 10 years. You can have someone create something like an application layer protocol, slight misuse of that word, but for something like, say, Twitter, that then on top of it has a whole ecosystem of those applications that are all interoperable. I think increasingly, the more we realize the true value of interoperability here and true interoperability across applications, I think that's one thing I'm looking forward to seeing.
Thank you very much, Zan. We do have one question from right here.
I hope you get many more questions. Can you be a bit more explicit on what piece is actually decentralized And one, because you mentioned, it sounds like the identity management part is decentralized in some way. What are the pieces that are actually decentralized? And in what way is it revolutionary?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say definitely read the white paper. I'm not an engineer by trade, so I'm not going to be the best person to explain the full technical underpinnings of the architecture. But both the storage and the identities are fundamentally decentralized. The identities are anchored in the Bitcoin blockchain. The creating a name, creating an identity happens completely programmatically and at a protocol level there. And we basically use the Bitcoin blockchain to anchor pointers to names and to data. And so the storage itself, the way it's a decentralized storage network, but we really look at it as it's user-centric in that a user can choose exactly where they want to host their data, how they want to do it, and we really have no say or anything there. But to really get a true understanding of that, I would really encourage you to read the white paper, as well as happy to put you in touch with one of our core engineers who I think can give you probably a little bit more satisfactory answer.
Thank you very much, Dan. And we have one last question right here.
Yes. So as per your most recent comments regarding interoperability, now is part of Blockstack's vision to cultivate an ecosystem that's cluster-like, whereas, let's say, one application in the mobility vertical can communicate via API with another application in the smart city vertical by leveraging things like micropayments or AI-to-AI communication, or is that not really the depth of vision there?
So I would say, we certainly have ideas about how that ecosystem will develop, but at the end of the day, Blockstack is an open source decentralized protocol. And so there's definitely, I would say, ideas that some of us individually are pushing and would love to see happen. Interoperability is just kind of one I think would be quite neat. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't necessarily say that there is a specific vision that we're requiring or pushing on top of the platform.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Hey, thank you all.
And now I think Pauline has a quick word for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, some of you are just asking us because they start to see Twitters. There's a live streaming currently happening. So if you want to tweet, you use, so it's on Twitter, it's on LinkedIn, it's on Facebook, it's on the PwC France account, and you can have the hashtag cryptomondays. So if you want to just use it instead of asking me every time. So I just wanted to give the info to everyone. So Johan.
Thank you very much. And now, Joe and Ed, the technical strategists at OneChain. Thank you very much.
Hello? Okay, better. Okay, so I'll do it again. Thank you, PwC, for hosting us tonight. And as a quick intro, so I'm Johan Ed. I'm a technical strategist at the OneChain Foundation. So tonight I would like to give you a clear vision of what we are doing at OneChain, what we believe the future of this industry will be, and where we think we are heading. So in the last years, what we've seen with the rise of cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum is a new paradigm. Basically, people are able to trade in a peer-to-peer decentralized manner assets for the first time in history. Currently, you can send Bitcoin from one person to another without having to go through a centralized exchange, to go through a bank, to go to a centralized party. You don't have to go through third parties in order to transfer value, to transfer assets. And that's the first time in history that people can trade without needing to trust each other. And we believe it's a world-changing event. So What we believe at OneChain is that in the next few years, we'll start witnessing the rise of a new digital economy, where people will be able to trade in a peer-to-peer manner without needing any third parties to intermediate in the transaction. We also believe that currently the industry is not ready to welcome this new digital economy. Why? Well, we are lacking some basic constraints. So, for instance, currently, if you have a decentralized exchange on the Ethereum blockchain or a loaning application on the Ethereum blockchain, the only assets you can access are either ETH or ERC20s. You don't have access to Bitcoin on a DEX. You don't have access to EOS whenever you are trading on a decentralized exchange on Ethereum. For instance, if you take the example of MakerDAO, you are able to mint the DAI tokens using ETH, not W, not BTC, not EOS, not any other assets, only ETH and the ERC20s. So you are siloed, you are restricted to the blockchain the application is living in. This is not a scalable way to go about it, right? Currently, if you were to go to a bank, you would have access to Euro, okay, but also USD and Chinese yuan, like many global currencies. We need to replicate this in the crypto ecosystem. We need to have applications that can access many kinds of digital assets. That's where OneChain comes in. OneChain, the name actually comes from one, which means 10,000 in Chinese. And we have this 10,000 chains concept. We believe there won't be a chain to rule them all. So sorry, Bitcoin, but there will be other chains. There will be Ethereum, there will be EOS, there will be many different chains. And communities will form on these chains, right? Applications, assets will be transferred. What we want is for OneChain to be able to host all the assets and basically users to be able to trade many kind of assets on the one ecosystem. The way we are going about it is basically solving the cross-chain transfer of assets problem. So a basic example of how we do cross-chain currently on OneChain. We lock assets on the native blockchain and we issue proxy token that represents the ownership of these assets. What we believe is that it will allow DEXs to be built on OneChain, and these DEXs will be able to trade BTC with the ERC20s, with ETH, and with many other digital assets. That's the future we are heading in. We want to have a blockchain that can have DApps, financial DApps that can access many kinds of digital assets, not only the ones that are living on the same blockchain. So that's our vision for the future. It's basically allowing for the digital economy to take shape and to really become the internet of value as Bitcoin first intended to create. So thank you for hearing me out, and I hope the mic was okay, by the way.
Thank you, Joanne. So yeah, you did talk a little bit about decentralized exchanges, and basically there are a few advantages to use those instead of centralized exchanges. Maybe you could remind us of the value that decentralized exchanges hold.
For sure, thanks. So I guess DEX is a good name. Another good name is non-custodian exchange. That goes back to the primary value of, we call it DEX for the simplicity, but it's basically that no third party holds your assets. Currently, if you were to go on Oasis DEX or Oasis Direct or iDEX or any other DEX, you can just plug in your hardware wallet and trade from your wallet. You don't have to transfer ownership of your assets to any central party. And that's really what crypto is all about, right? I mean, this industry was basically created so that we don't have to go through third parties, through banks in order to transfer value. That's why DEXs really are the future of this industry, basically, in order to transfer assets.
Thank you. Just like with Zan, if anybody has a question, please raise your hand. Oh, already, okay.
Thanks, Patrick. Is there any use of this blockchain, of this this thing? Is there anything that you can tell us about who is using it and use case, something?
Yeah, actually, thank you for this question. I forgot to say where we are currently on the roadmap, so I guess I'll use it. So we integrated ETH about 3 months ago. So currently you are able to lock assets on the Ethereum blockchain and transfer them onto one chain. So what it means is that currently, if you are to build a DEX on one chain, these DEX would trade between two protocol coins, right? ETH and OneCoin. And in 1 month, we'll integrate Bitcoin onto the mainnet. What does it mean? Well, you'll be able to have a DEX that can trade between BTC and ETH. Now, that's the first time in the industry. Currently, if you want to trade between different protocol assets, you have to go through a centralized exchange. You have to give up custody of your assets. You have to transfer funds. You have to go through all the worry about hacks, etc. Currently, with a DEX that will be built on the DEXs that will be built on one chain, will allow you to trade between all these assets in a simple manner, like you can do on Ethereum currently, but with protocol assets instead of ERC20s.
Thank you very much.
Are there other usage than just decentralized exchanges? Because the proxy helps you track the value, but what about utility tokens? Does it work in that case as well, or just for crypto assets?
For sure. DEX is a nice example, right? It's the most obvious one that comes into mind. But one chain, in the end, it's like Ethereum. You can create anything you want. You can create games, you can have NFTs, anything. Another good use case for one chain is, are you familiar with MakerDAO, for instance? MakerDAO is a crypto-backed stablecoin. And basically, users send ETH to a smart contract, which is called a CGP, so collateralized deposition. A nice example of how we could use one chain's technology is to have MakerDAO on one chain and being able to issue DAI that's backed by Bitcoin, a crypto-backed stablecoin, but the crypto here is not ETH, it's Bitcoin. So to be honest, the applications are quite limitless. It's not restricted. DEX is just a nice example for a first time.
Thank you very much. We have time for one last question if anybody wants to take it because we're a bit late. Anyone? Okay.
So a part of one chain's depth of vision, do you foresee possibly the cultivation of some wallet format where you can hold not only crypto assets, but also physical assets backed by crypto, or is that more so a different department in a different part of the industry?
Such as NFTs, right?
Something like that, yes.
Okay, for sure. I think a good advantage we'll have in the future is that we can indeed have NFTs on the platform. We don't have to be an issuance platform. People can issue on Ethereum, and we can do the cross-chain from Ethereum to one chain. So, of course, cross-chain NFTs, cross-chain real-world assets will come into play in the future, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So thanks again, everybody, for coming. There's, I think, a buffet and drinks somewhere in the room, maybe in the back. Thanks again, and we'll see you next month or maybe in January. Thank you.